All right, so the next story is one that, I'll be honest, it's maybe not the most, thrilling story, but essentially the United States government, specifically the Joint Economic, I believe it is, Committee, came out with a pretty long report. It's something like, I don't know, about 20 pages long or something like that, or at least the part that was dedicated to cryptocurrency.
No, the whole report was like 300 pages, but the cryptocurrency portion was like 20. Yeah.
Right, and this, I believe it was released within the last few days, and I'll read off some of the quotes and, just so you guys can get a little bit of an idea of kind of what the tone was. There's one part where they're saying cryptocurrency might replace national currencies and challenge the U.S. dollar. There were some areas where I guess they mentioned Janet Yellen, who's the, I guess, head of the Fed.
Former.
Former now.
Yeah.
I feel like they go through them pretty quickly. And they, she at one point she had been grilling cryptocurrency for the infamous December 2017 scaling issues. I like how it's like the Irish potato famine. It's like we're all gonna look back decades from now and be like, oh, remember December 2017?
So traumatic.
Lives were ruined, lives were made, billionaires were made. But I was curious, if we take a step back, when we get reports like this, how much do you think they really actually matter? I think is my question, because sometimes reports are good, sometimes reports are bad. Ultimately, it doesn't seem like much action is being taken, and maybe that's a good thing. Some people are saying that the markets have rebounded as a result of the positive rhetoric within this report. And I was curious, do you think a report like this can have enough of an effect, not just on the U.S. markets, but on the international cryptocurrency markets? I'll start with Jackson.
I think that the most interesting part of this is just how quickly the Bitcoin and crypto markets have been inoculated to this kind of news. Like, not that it's bad news, it's just it doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
Like, it's boring. Like 2-3 years ago, this would have been the biggest news ever. It would be insane. But in terms of this report, I read almost the entire thing on crypto part, and it just does not seem like they get it, in my opinion. I know that some people.
Which part do you think they don't get?
It's just still all blockchain, not Bitcoin.
I think
blockchain, not currency.
I think I can talk a little bit about that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, okay. So from their understanding and a lot of people's understanding, people think that someone created a blockchain and then they said, "Wait, we can use this for money." It's like no. Blockchain is a second order effect of someone trying to solve a specific problem.
Right.
And the specific problem is the double spend problem. Yeah. Or how do you create digital scarcity, right, without having to trust any third party? And that is a specific problem for digital money schemes. So money was the original problem. How do you create that digital scarcity online where anyone that's, used a computer or used the internet or any type of knowledge of the things that we use every day, it's very easy to create and share and replicate and copy files.
Right.
So what Bitcoin did is an intellectual achievement that most people don't necessarily understand, and it was to solve a specific computer science problem. And from that, the solution, a blockchain, was created to solve that specific problem. It wasn't. They have it back-asswards where it's like, oh, someone created a blockchain and then Satoshi said, oh, let's apply this to currency. And there's all these other use cases. Right. And to date, there is no other use case besides money. And they're
starting to come down the pipeline, though, it seems.
Oh, I know. What I'm saying, I've said to date.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, fair enough.
Right. So it to date, it has not been proven that there is any other use case. Now, there are, I do believe that there are, but they might be 15, 20 years away after the main chain has been solidified, right? It kind of a backbone. Right? I'm not talking just Bitcoin, but
that's a long time.
I know. I'm not. Let's just. It took a long time to get to Facebook, right? Or Google. So you could chart back to DARPA, right? So DARPA started in the 70s, right? And it took about 30 years to get to Google, right? So Bitcoin just started in 2009. Right, the early network looks like an early DARPA network. So I don't think 15, 20 years is that out of the question for another application to really arise that actually works. They spend a lot of time talking about all these other applications, especially healthcare, and energy grid, right? But it's not necessarily clear how to, like, the devil's in the details on it. We already know how to do it for money, right? That's what it was for,
right?
So they think blockchain became, it's like, no, it was the other way around. We solved a certain problem, and because of that, a blockchain was produced.
Yeah, I want to agree with what Brett said a while ago about this was something that was made to solve a certain problem, and that was eliminating any sort of trusted third parties while trying to defeat the double spend problem.
Yes.
And it does that. The thing is, with every single one of these things, all you have to do is there anywhere where you rely on a third party? If you do, then you completely destroyed the purpose, and you might as well go back to
it's
square
like,
zero.
I don't know what is a blockchain at that point.
Yeah,
right?
and I want to know, Kylan, what do you actually think is coming down the pipe that you think will be useful for? Because
right.
I honestly don't think there's anything.
Here we go.
All right, so I mean, there's okay.
I'm generally with because like you love Monero. Monero is a money.
Yeah,
right. It is trying to be a unit of account.
Yeah, I don't think Kylan would try to argue that it wasn't.
Okay, so this is literally a quote from this report. So I'm taking them at their face value. This is actually a quote
face
that came.
Value is zero.
Yeah,
anyway,
with the politicians. No, you're right. That's fine. But I remember hearing about this a while ago, and I'm going to read out this quote. It says, Walmart and other grocers started testing blockchains for their supply chains. In testimony before the House Science and Tech Committee, someone described how tracking E. coli and other contaminated food took companies and regulators weeks, which from the news that I've seen about E. coli outbreaks, it takes them a while, which left Americans at risk and incurring large costs in food waste. Walmart tested a blockchain platform to track sliced mangoes from farm to shelves and reduce the tracking time from 7 days to 2.2 seconds. Walmart and 10 of the largest grocers in America formed a coalition to implement this technology throughout their supply chains.
That's
for
people listening. When you hear coalition, to me that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is about not having to rely on a
people that
coalition.
trust each other. Like it's
That's not the point. The point is they were able to use blockchain technology to track the supply chain.
The only thing that means is their supply tracking system right now is terrible. Because if you can use a blockchain to do it better, that means that you just have a crappy system.
Yeah, that's fine. But that in a way, that's still an application. It's an improvement being made, right?
I'm not sure if it's
no way. So
it's low fruit, I guess. But
the other thing we didn't go over that Brett, when he was going on his rant about why crypto is the only reason we should have a blockchain, which is correct in my vision, is that
up until this point, right?
Is that a blockchain is intentionally slow and expensive.
There we go.
By design, it is intentionally slow and expensive. So if you have to have any sort of trusted third party, then you might as well have a database. It is quick and cheap, and that is what you want.
So there's one, sharing databases might make things more efficient, but they keep bringing up blockchain and efficiency, right? People within a certain paradigm want to keep making that paradigm more and more efficient. Nothing about Bitcoin is efficient, right? It's almost the opposite of efficient. So when people try to equate blockchains with efficiency, then I think they're talking about databases that have look nothing like a open public block. I would think of a open public blockchain. If we're just sharing Excel spreadsheets, I'm not sure if that's like some huge breakthrough or a huge blockchain application.
Dude, and the other thing with this E. coli food chain tracking, it's only as good as data in. So
exactly. So because it's not natively digital, right? Bitcoin.
Okay,
is
you're right. There is
digital.
some manual input at some point.
Yes,
and so you have to trust that manual input. So why have an expensive, slow blockchain?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not there working at the supermarket, so I don't know all the details of it. But this is someone's testimony.
And I'll bring up another.
Do you want the kids to get E. coli, Jackson? Is that what this is about? It's the kids.
Yes,
you just don't give a shit about the kids, Jackson.
So we have stuff to talk about kids later on in the show.
Another point that was brought up in the Congressional report. So, and this has been, I guess, repeated ad nauseum by a lot of people, where they associate blockchain with immutability. And just because you have blockchain on a piece of paper and say, Walmart has a blockchain, and just because someone says they have a blockchain does not mean it's immutable, right? The immutability comes from, and immutability is still a relevant term, right? So Bitcoin is highly tamper resistant. So, there's hardly any 100% in life. So get rid of Bitcoin could never be possibly tampered with. No, but it's a very, very high cost, almost improbably high, and it's effectively immutable. But that only comes from how you structure the blockchain itself, right? If you change it up in certain ways, that immutability feature might not be there, and it just becomes another database. So the way you set it up matters, and out of setting it up a certain way, you get immutability as an emergent property, not just because you have a blockchain.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing that people do not go down on so hard that is kind of interesting is that you can timestamp things with Bitcoin, and you can actually prove that this data didn't exist or existed when this exact moment in Bitcoin happened. So you can tap into Bitcoin's blockchain immutability that everybody wants that way. But it doesn't.
That's where people, the maximalists, have some decent arguments where you only need one chain. Yeah, and I think that might be analogous to monotheism, right? They basically consolidated all these gods into one god. You only need one. You only need one for social cohesion, right? And that's where a lot of blockchain maximalists or I should say Bitcoin maximalists, be like, we only need one proof of work blockchain, right, to trust.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about why this is good, though. The longer it takes all of these governments to wrap their heads around what is going on here, in the meanwhile, people are building incredible projects that actually do matter at a breakneck speed. It's just going to take them to the point where they have to wait until it's all built before they can try to regulate anything, which is kind of a good thing.
Yeah. And the pace of building is incredible because these public blockchains, in contrast to these blockchains in name only, can leverage talent all over the world. Right, in ways that the international banking system can't. Like Bitcoin, some 15-year-old in Bangladesh who's a savant and whatever, can actually contribute code to Bitcoin Core. Or there was actually a 15-year-old yesterday that put out a report on. This might be something that you can talk about next episode, but basically put out a report on the Ledger wallet security vulnerabilities.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah. And
you said he's 15 years old?
He said online that he's 15. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. Right. But you can imagine it being true, and you can just replicate that example, all over the world, right? There's tons of talent all over the world that really can't help. The existing system has no way to recruit and incentivize them to help out. But this new system, I mean, the brain drain is going to be unbelievable and it's already happened in Silicon Valley and Wall Street. A lot of the top people are just, they're seeing the writing on the wall and going to crypto. And that's just in the United States, but all over, I'm sure some of the most aware and intellectual Venezuelans are all over this stuff.